Hello everyone, today's video is going to be about the surface embroidery books that I have in my collection. Now I know all embroidery is surface embroidery, but by that I mean compared to the previous video, none of these are necessarily strictly counted threadwork techniques, so I always refer to it as surface embroidery. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I own and also the ones that I borrow on a semi-regular basis from the library if I'm in the need of sort of inspiration or I want to try and do something a little bit different, try and encourage myself to actually do some surface embroidery, which seems to be a bit of a problem. So what is my relationship with surface embroidery? Well, it is one of fear, I think. I have dipped the tiniest of toenails into the shallowest end of the surface embroidery pool. I absolutely adore looking at the work of others. I follow so many different fibre, textile and embroidery artists on Instagram, love looking at their blogs, going to exhibitions, seeing it in galleries, things like that. I basically stalk just about every Royal School of Needlework student and future tutor and tutor on Instagram. I just get a lot of joy and inspiration from looking at their work. And I think it helps with my creativity, not because I'm looking to replicate what they've done, but even just in everyday life, seeing beautiful things just makes me happy. And that's the feeling I get when I see the work of others. But I know that the desire is there to actually do something myself with surface embroidery. For some reason, I'm just really hesitant to do it and I don't know why. So maybe doing this video, talking about these books, will act as some sort of therapy for me, and I'll get over myself and I'll actually get on and do some of the things that I really want to, because I have no idea what is holding me back from giving this a go. So as a disclaimer, if you're looking at this video and hoping to find in-depth reviews on these books, that is not what this video is. This video is more of show than it is tell. I can't speak necessarily to the practicalities of these books. What I would recommend, again, is that you go and visit Mary Corbet's Needle and Thread blog, where the majority of, I think all of these books are reviewed on her site. A lot of them I've bought on her recommendation. They all, I think, got sort of 5 stars. They're excellent books. But she can obviously, as sort of a super experienced, incredibly fantastic embroiderer, can speak to the practicalities of these books. I can just speak to them from my experience of what I've used them for, how I feel about them, that side of things, the aesthetic side of things. So for in-depth reviews from somebody who knows what they're talking about, go and see Mary Corbet. She is a woman. So when I sort of started getting interested in doing surface embroidery, it was basically around about the time I originally started my YouTube channel, because I was looking to do something different than cross stitch. I was looking to broaden my horizons a bit. I have done that since, but more down the counted threadwork route than the surface embroidery route. So I was sort of looking into it and collecting things and all that side of it before I started my YouTube channel. But what I wanted, I didn't want like a general, if I want information, yes, I use the internet, but I like to have a book. I'm just old school that way. So when I started looking for books that I could possibly have, I wanted ones that covered specifically different types of embroidery. I didn't just want one general A to Z of embroidery. And there were basically 2 series of books that I narrowed down my choices to. Basically through Googling, looking at reviews on various from various different blogs and embroiderers. Obviously Mary Corbet played a massive part in that. And the 2 series of books were the Royal School of Needlework Essential Stitch Guides, and a series of books that had recently, as I was looking when I was in the market for buying embroidery books, this particular series had recently been republished by Search Press, and they both covered the areas of embroidery that I was interested in. Now, fortunately for me, despite the fact I live in a tiny Cornish town, we have a fantastic county library service. So I was able, all the books that I was interested in actually looking at and potentially buying, I was actually able to borrow them first, which was brilliant because it meant that I could narrow down what I wanted, because I didn't obviously want to own, at that point, both the A to Z series and the Royal School of Needlework series. So I borrowed all of them, looked at them all, and decided which one to go with. So I bought these, which are the A to Z guide by Search Press. I chose these at the time over the Essential Stitch guides. I just preferred the format. The books themselves, I'll go through the ones I've got in a second, but the books themselves were just bigger. The Royal School of Needlework guides were sort of narrower, and I don't know, I couldn't see myself, sitting at my desk, opening the book and using them to stitch from and to work from. That the size of them was a bit weird, and it was a few years ago now that I made the decision, so I can't quite remember exactly the layout of the Royal School of Needlework books. I think I just wanted the book to be bigger so that I could see the pictures and that type of thing. I just wanted the book to be bigger, which worked out well for me, as you'll see in a moment. So I went with these, and I've used a few of them in different projects, but I just love the history of needlework. I love looking at them. I do get inspiration from them to feed into the work that the stitching projects that I do currently. I've got a lot of ideas and things to do in the future, once I get the projects I'm working on at the moment out of the way. One of the things I did find when I was doing a goldwork project, which I'll speak of in a moment, is the difference for me between doing surface embroidery and counted thread work. Counted thread work comes fairly easily to me. I'm not very good at, if I don't pick up something straight away, I find it very hard to go back to, which is completely my problem, and it's an awful personality trait to have. I'm one of those people that if it goes wrong once, I won't try again, which is ridiculous. So that's something I need to get over, and something I want to get over, so that I can branch out into new things. But one of the things I did find when I was doing the goldwork project that I was working on is it's very consuming, in that I could spend the entire afternoon completely immersed, concentrating really hard, but it's a slow process. I wouldn't be able ever, even if I was ever a competent embroideress, stitch mindlessly in the way that I can with counted thread work. So I can see there's potentially a place for both in my life, but counted thread work would always win out, because I don't always have the mental headspace and capacity to sit and concentrate and become, it was wonderful to be that immersed in something, and I did like the fact that I was learning new things, but that's the difference for me in my mind. So I'd be really interested to hear from you if you're one of those fabulous people that are multi-craftual and you do all sorts of needlework. Please comment below as to how you feel about what you do, what you find the most rewarding for you, your experiences. I'll be really interested to hear that. You might have come, I guess it depends on your background as well. If you have people in your family that have done embroidery and you've learned that from a child, then obviously that's something that stays with you and you find it easy. Me coming to surface embroidery now, that's not something that I have ever done. Nobody in my family did surface embroidery. They were counted thread workers, they were knitters and crocheters. I can't do that. So maybe there's something there as well. If you're sort of introduced to it at a younger age, maybe that's a bit better. I don't know, I'm rambling a bit now, but anyway, I'd be really interested in how, if you are somebody that does surface embroidery, your story, how you came about to do it. But going back to the books, so the titles that I have, there are other ones available. I don't have all of them. I resisted the temptation to get a complete set because it wasn't necessary. So I picked out the specific types of embroidery that I was interested in. And obviously top of the list is white work. I love counted thread work, white work, and I also adore surface embroidery that's white work. There's so many different varieties. But this is just a general A to Z guide, walks you through the different types of surface white work that you can come across. So the cut work, candle wicking, they've got Hadibo embroidery, which I really love. They do a little bit on Mount Melick embroidery as well. But I just like the way it's laid out. It's very clear. So there's an example of a page. And each one of these is very similar, but they're all similar in the layout. So it's very clear. The instructions are underneath. And I like the fact that you see the actual photographs of the stitch in progress. Sometimes for counted thread work, as in the proper stitch that I mentioned in my previous video. They don't show stitched examples, but obviously it's counted thread work, so it's on a grid so you can clearly see the stitch placement. I don't find it necessarily helpful, as in the case with some of the books that I'm going to show you, where it's just a hand drawing or like a computer graphic. You'll see what I mean in a moment. I like to see the stitch work on the actual fabric itself. I find that personally helpful. So that's white work, which I love. And then there's needlepoint, which is like canvas work. I spoke at some point recently about, I'd looked into, it was the Alice video, I'd looked into counted canvas work. I've got this book which goes through the stitches. You can see some of them on the back. Although I might not do counted canvas work, I find this book helpful, inspiration-wise, thinking about the different textures that you can achieve with blocks of stitches. So for example, I've just turned to this page, the effect that you can get using different colour combinations, similar stitch types in a block like that. I can use that for inspiration for counted thread work when I'm looking at changing patterns or things like that. So as I say, it's not as though I've done canvas work, but I find that this book as well corresponds quite helpfully to counted thread work, because obviously counted canvas work is a type of counted thread work. But generally I just love embroidery books, so as I say, I can't speak to, I mean the diagrams are very clear again. That one there's Leviathan stitch, which you might be familiar with. In fact, a lot of these stitches, if you look through the books, you obviously, a lot of people would have done them in counted thread work. I know that I have done at various points with different speciality stitches. So I just like them. Then there's Crewel Embroidery, which is something I really genuinely would like to look at closer. Haven't done any projects or anything, but I have the fabric, the embroidery fabric, in my stash. I've got plenty of threads. There's no reason why I couldn't pull it out and give it a go. Why don't I do it? I don't know. Answers below. Ribbon Embroidery, which I love. This book, I mean, the only ribbon embroidery I've ever done is in counted thread work and when I've done ribbon roses. That's it really. But this shows how you can create different types of flowers, the different stitches that you use. This book has more. Each of these books do have a few projects towards the back. The Ribbonwork book seems to have more than the others. I've not bought any of this series with a view to doing any of the projects mentioned in the book. I've bought them as a technical guide, a reference point that I can use should I wish to do any of those stitches myself in some of my work. So just to give you an idea, obviously it was spiderweb ribbon roses that I did, but it just, for example, there you've got how to gather the ribbon to create that flower at the bottom. And the other thing that's good, you do associate ribbon embroidery with flowers, at least I do, but there's a section in this book that shows how you can use it for other things. So there's a little ghost there, but there's also some little insects and also birds. So there's a little penguin and a seagull there. And although I wouldn't necessarily use those, it helps me to think outside the box, and that's something I want to do more of, to be more creative with things. I have this desire to do it. I don't know why I don't. So yeah, I find that really helpful. And obviously there are other sort of traditional looking embroidery patterns in this one. So that would be what I would call, I would think of as, traditional ribbon embroidery in the sense of creating flowers. If you're interested in ribbon embroidery, there's another book which I don't have, but I have borrowed, and her work is lovely, and she's has a fantastic Instagram page, and that's Sophie Long, although her married name is Sophie Heaven. As always, I'll link to everything below, but her first book, she is a tutor for the Royal School of Needlework, and she has a book, her first book was all about ribbon work, because I think that's her jam, and I love the way that she combines it with other techniques, and I think that's my interest in that sense. Those are the pieces that I like the most, are those that combine several sort of embroidery disciplines. So it's not as though I'd want to do a whole piece that's 100% ribbon embroidery. I would like to do a piece that has a bit of ribbon in, a bit of crewel, a bit of gold work, just because I think that makes it more interesting. So that's Ribbon Embroidery, and Sophie Long, remember her. And the final 3 books are books that I have used. This is the Goldwork book with silk embroidery, and then the other one are 2 books of embroidery stitches. So there's Embroidery Stitches 1 and Embroidery Stitches 2. And a lot of these stitches that are mentioned go across the board: counted threadwork, surface embroidery. So for example, looking at the contents page in this one, I can see you've got all the blanket stitches, all the buttonhole stitches, which I've used in counted threadwork. You've got Sorbello stitch, which I remember doing in that one, the Great Escape up there. Lots of these I did in that one, and that's counted threadwork. So it's very good. It corresponds for both, really. So again, it's laid out in exactly the same way. So with a clear picture of the thread in being worked. So for example, there's one we probably all know, eyelet stitch. Again, shows you how to work it on the fabric itself. So both of those I find really good. There's a piece I've got in mind as a new start at some point where it is a cross stitch pattern, but I want to use other stitches and other things in it, bits of applique and bits of goldwork and things like that. So I find these type of books really good to look through, see the stitch and wonder how I can work that into something. And as I mentioned, I did do a goldwork project, and this book was helpful. I find a combination of being able to watch a video about it, but also have a book for a point of reference good, and also to have multiple points of view on a technique I find helpful. So the project that I did, and if you're somebody that's interested in goldwork, it's one that I would recommend because it's not expensive to do, but it gives you a taste of it. I don't actually have it to hand, and I haven't actually finished it. It may be the case because it was such a long time ago that I started it, and then obviously I stopped stitching and doing anything vaguely creative. I may well repurchase the kit again and start from scratch. But it's by, again, another Royal School of Needlework tutor, and she's actually written one of the essential stitch guides for the Royal School of Needlework, and that's Sarah Homfrey. She's got her own website, and her beginner's goldwork kit, I will put a picture up of it here. Basically, you buy the kit, which includes the fabric, which is pre-printed, and it includes all the threads that you'll need to complete the design. I also bought some goldwork scissors so that I could cut the threads, and a block of beeswax because you need that to condition the thread for certain elements of the design. And hopefully I've put up a picture showing you the different threads that are included. And then what you do is the method for working that design is actually a series of YouTube videos. So I'll link to those below. So if you are interested in goldwork, it might be worth having a look at those videos because they're very pitched at the very beginner level. And you might think that it's something you're interested in, or you might watch the videos and think, oh no, that's not for me. But the kit itself was very inexpensive. I think it was less than £15. So it's not much of an investment if you just want to give something a go. And there were elements of goldwork that I loved. I loved couching the threads. I loved the effect of it. I loved doing the chip work, cutting up the pearl and placing them as little chips. Things that I found tricky were plunging the threads and finishing off the threads. But again, it takes practice, and if you really want to do something, you have to stick with it, and that's what I need to do. And remember that I am not going to be good at everything anyway, nor will I be good the first time of trying. It might take years just to reach being vaguely proficient, and I have to just deal with that. So that's the Goldwork book. So those were, as I said, the Search Press Classic series. There are others, as I mentioned, in the series, but at the back of this book it actually advertises, you can see there, the essential stitch guides from the Royal School of Needlework. Some of those you might recognise. Now, just recently, as I alluded to in the first video that I posted about my currently stitching, Recently, the Royal School of Needlework have published a complete collection of those books, but in one volume. And it's big. They've obviously realised from books they published prior to this one that people want bigger books. They want to be able to see the things, they want to be able to work from the books. It's much easier. You get much more inspiration from a larger book. So this copy is actually the library's copy, but I have mine winging its way to me from Amazon. I managed to get it for about £14 on Amazon, which is a fantastic price for a book that is this size and covers so many topics. So you can see from the bottom there, it covers crewel work, black work, white work, silk shading, stump work, bead embroidery, canvas work, gold work. Now there are some there that correspond with what I already have. I'm not worried about that. The more the merrier as far as I'm concerned, and it was never the content that I was concerned with in the Royal School of Needlework guys. It's more the format and things, but they've completely reworked it, put it all in one volume so it saves space on your shelf. So obviously if you already have some of those essential stitch guides, you might not be wanting to get them in one big volume. But as I don't have a book dedicated to black work or one on silk shading or stump work or bead embroidery, I thought, I mean, for £14, why wouldn't you buy this book? One of the sections particularly that I found really inspiring and that I really want to do something with is the bead embroidery. Even on, they had some examples, I probably won't be able to find it now, but they had some examples of using it with like canvas work, replacing some of the stitches with beads, and I don't know, something about looking at those pictures really sparked something off with me. I should really attempt to find you the page. I didn't mark it previously. Let's see. Yeah, so each section it goes through as the books I showed you previously, the Search Press books. It goes through the history of that particular type of needlework, the stitches you'll need to know, the tools, the materials. There are really good explanations and excellent photographs of all the techniques as you would expect from the Royal School of Needlework. And there are also some projects that are in here for each section as well. Although for me, I'm not as much interested in the projects, as lovely as they are to look at and inspirational, but I'm more about the techniques and seeing what's going on there. So yeah, this is what I particularly like. The way that they've used the texture of the stitches and the beads, integrated the beads in with that. I just thought that was really interesting, and I don't know why I've not thought to do that type of thing before. But there's, you know, several different things, and it's just, I mean, this is just in the beaded section alone. You can see the quality of the photographs and the explanations. It's brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to having my own copy and hopefully using it for what it's intended, not as just a coffee table book. So I've got another two Royal School of Needlework designs, which I'm books that I'm Royal School of Needlework design books that I'm not going to go into too much detail on, other than they published these ones before the book of embroidery, so obviously they realised that people like a bigger book. But one of the projects in here, this is the applique book. These are both library books. I've got out of the library many times, and one of the projects in here I just love. They're one of the students at the Royal School of Needlework, Auburn Claire, her name is on Instagram. She posted pictures of this particular project as she was developing it and as she was working on it. I think she's in the future tutor programme, and this was one of her pieces for assessment. I think it would have been on white work, I would assume. But I followed her progress on it, and I just absolutely loved the piece. It was just so amazing. To you guys, it might seem really plain, but I just absolutely loved it. So I'm just going to show you that one. And it's a white work sort of piece, and you can see it's Mr. Tumnus from Narnia. And I just love the way she's used, although it's sort of white, all the different textures that she's used, the different paddings to bring more images to the forefront, and I just love it. And I know I'm never going to be able to do anything like that, but I just really appreciate and enjoy looking at other people's work, and I find it makes me want to be more creative in just my own little wheelhouse of, you know, the odd bit of counted thread work I do every now and then. But it just makes me happy to look at pictures like that, and, you know, the work and dedication and the talent that goes into creating something like that is just amazing. And this one is about raised embroidery, so like stump work, things like that. And there's one particular project that I have earmarked in here to show you. And again, it just shows, I could look at this picture for ages and see so many different things, and I think you cannot say, it's that whole argument between art and craft. When is something a craft? When is it an art? These people are artists. I'm barely a crafter. But when you see something like this, this is a book cover with the Owl and the Pussycat. And can you see, I mean, I would just want to see that in the flesh, to see all the different textures, the fabrics, the materials, the threads used in there. It's just amazing. And I just find that so inspiring that somebody can create that. And yeah, it's just amazing to me. So these are two that I get out every now and then for, you know, inspiration and to make me do things. But yeah, basically these books make me happy when I look at them. That's what this video should be entitled, really. When it comes to gold work, I do have another gold work book, which again is more for inspiration. I don't think I'll ever use it to work a project, but and it's this one, Gold Work. It's more of an advanced gold work book by Hazel Everett. And I just particularly liked the way she's laid out about all the different gold work threads. That's very nice and clear, and also the different effects that can be had when using gold work. Each of those leaves is stitched using a slightly different gold work metal thread. And also she's got this amazing section where she focuses on bugs that she's made, and there are schemes of work for how to do that yourself. But again, more of an inspirational one for me. Any of you that do gold work and are amazing at it, then that's a lovely book. And another one I get out from the library every so often is this is a combination of stump work and gold work embroidery. This one's by Jane Nichols, and I have thought about using the sort of embroidery template, the design, and just doing my own thing with the pattern itself, not doing exactly what they've done. But just for example, there's I just love the colours and the amazing things that you can do, and the texture and things that you can achieve using metal threads. And so like this design just uses enough metal threads. It's not too blingy, but obviously it incorporates other forms of embroidery. So yeah, so that's another book that I just like. Sometimes it's just looking at the colour combinations stitchers use, embroiderers use, and it just sparks something off. But basically they just bring me a lot of joy looking at them, so that's what I do. So now to two specific embroiderers, designers that I really like their work, and they're actually both South African as it happens. One is Hazel Blomkamp and the other one is Trish Burr. Now I don't actually own any of Hazel's books, but I do get them out from the library on a regular basis. And Hazel's books are, they're on several different things, but it's basically Jacobean crewel work, but I like the sort of modern twist she takes on it. So she's got several books that cover that topic, and she's just had a new one out which I haven't seen, haven't got my eyes on, and that's Crewel Creations, I think. But there's Crewel Intentions, which I have here, and there's also Crewel Twists, which I put a picture up of, so you can see the front cover. And there's just some really lovely designs in here, and I am tempted to actually get a kit, possibly one day. There's designs in Crewel Twists, which are just Jacobean and Midnight Meander from memory, that I love. But just to give you a flavour of the type of thing I'm talking about, you can see that design there. Obviously no prizes for the fact that I love that, because it's got that sort of white work-esque feel to it as well. But again, I think the whole thing with surface embroidery for me is a textural thing. For somebody who cross stitches, that's ridiculous, because quite often if you're doing like a full coverage piece, it's all the same texture. You create a little bit of extra texture with the colours that you use and the shading. But I think that's maybe what appeals to me so much about crewel work, I don't know. And then obviously this one, look at the colours on that. I mean, that is not your grandmother's crewel work, is it? So yeah, love that. And the other thing that she does is crazy patchwork, which is this book. And I've got a lot of fabric, I've got a lot of threads. By fabric, I mean like quilting types of fabric for finishing, which I never do. And the like. And although I would never be able to do anything like this. But again, I find it inspiring. It might help me use the fabric I have in finishes and to embellish that fabric further. So either follow the design in some sort of embroidery that's already on that fabric, and then use that fabric to finish something properly that I've actually stitched. But again, these are ideas that I have in my head. But I love looking at people that do crazy patchwork. I think it's fabulous. I mean, I just love it. I mean, look at everything there. It's just amazing. I mean, the amount of work that goes in there. So this book is more of a project book. And as I was talking about before, when it comes to the techniques gallery in this particular book, it's just sort of illustrations like that. It's not the actual physical needle and thread. So I don't always find that easy. But then I've got other books, if I wanted to do something a bit different, that I could refer to. This book for me would be more of if I was going to do anything in it. It is definitely a project book. It goes in great detail in how to recreate those designs. And this one as well, sort of a bit more crewel work inspired, Jacobean in the shape. But I just like the way the colour scheme really, and the different, how using different needle weaving techniques creates those different textures. I just think that's fabulous, and I would love to be able to do something like that, but I know that's not going to be possible. So that's Hazel Blomkamp, and the other South African artist, embroidery artist, although her work is amazing, as I mentioned, is Trish Burr. Now she's kind of known for her needle painting, thread painting. I know that's completely beyond me, totally, but I just love looking at her work. It is amazing that somebody can create something that looks like a painting from what is essentially, DMC embroidery floss. And obviously she uses silk as well sometimes. But the first book I'm going to show you, which I do own, is this one. It's called Colour Confidence, and I didn't buy it for the projects in it, as I said. I mean, they're way above me. I'll just show you an example. So that's sort of the one on the front. I mean, the detail there and the shading is, it's just amazing. But this is a really good book for if you're struggling. It's basically a colour theory book, but for embroiderers, not for interior designers. So it's so good because the colours are all referenced by DMC thread number. So it is fabulous if you're looking to work out colour schemes, you're looking to possibly do colour conversions, you might find this book helpful. But just to give you an idea, so for example there you can see the complete range of colours. Obviously this is sort of needle painting, long and short stitch work, but it lists the colours that you can see there going from sort of dark to light, the different tones within them. So you could use that if you wanted to do a conversion for charts that you see to find the colour families. But I think it's just the fact that it's based on the DMC chart, which is easily available to everybody. Most people use DMC embroidery thread regardless of what particular embroidery they're doing. And yeah, so you can see there the petals of these flowers all stitched in varying different combinations that are listed there, all DMC thread colours. So that book is brilliant for inspiration for colour and how to use it the best. And as I say, it does go into the theory of it in a much more relevant way from an embroidery point of view than from somebody who's looking to do up their kitchen or something like that. So I would definitely recommend if you can borrow this book from the library or something like that first, you'll see if it's the type of thing you're after. Or obviously, as I said, Mary Corbet's done a review on it, so you can see her opinion on it as well. But I think there's a lot of embroiderers that really love this book and benefit from it. I have, even just doing the tiny little bit of counted, stitching that I do. Now, as well as thread painting, the other thing that Trish Burr does, which really caught my eye because it's white work based, is she has done a series of designs that are white work with colour, and they are amazing, and I just love them the first time I saw them. I'm not sure if I'm ever I want to do one. I'm not sure if I will, but white work with colour. So this is basically more of a project book than it is a techniques book. It obviously does explain how to accomplish the designs, but it's more about the patterns themselves and the order of work. So I've just to give you a flavour of the designs. They are rated from beginner, which is level 1, right the way up to level 3. So let's just go ahead and show you a level 3 design and show you what I wish I could do. So there's this one, that's the Lion King, and you can see how she's combined white work techniques. You can see the different sort of textures she's used there, but also combined with her amazing thread painting skills as well. And there's another one, little owl, which is lovely. And the easiest, one in the book is that one. So Trish does sell kits of her designs online. The good thing about the materials used in this book is that the threads are all DMC stranded cotton, which I have in abundance. The problem is, which I think is a sticking point with me and some types of surface embroidery, is the fabric and transferring the design onto the fabric. There's several different ways that you can do it. It just terrifies me. But from her online shop, Trish does sell the fabric with the design transferred on. I think you can get iron-on transfers as well. As I said, she's based in South Africa, but even with the postage and customs, it might be doable. So we'll see. So that is a whistle-stop tour. I really wanted this video to be shorter than the last one. It will be a bit shorter, but not by much. A whistle-stop tour of the surface embroidery books that I have. Majority of those I've shown you in my collection. Others I've got out of my local library. So I would definitely, if you're interested in any of these things, have a look on your online library catalogue, see what you've got that can be available to you to have a look at first. So then you don't have to necessarily have books on your shelf that aren't going to inspire you, if nothing else. I find these quite aspiring and inspiring, even though I might not have used them to actually work from. But now I have something I just wanted to discuss and get people's opinions on. So I'd really love your opinions on how you feel about surface embroidery. Are you somebody like me who's wanting to do it but just is scared, or are you an old hand at it, love it? Any tips that you've got on how to start or what to start on below, I'd really appreciate it. The next thing I'm interested in knowing people's opinion on is online classes or cyber classes for surface embroidery. Now, this little topic came about because you may know that in connection with so-and-so, the Royal School of Needlework are offering online classes. And initially when I saw that, I thought, oh, that's amazing, that's brilliant. Obviously they hold classes, day classes at Hampton Court Palace and also at satellite centres around the country, and they also have schools in America over the summer holidays. None of them are particularly close to me, and also there's the time constraints as well. The idea of doing an online class appeals because obviously you can work at it in your own time. So at the moment they've got one on Crewelwork and one on Blackwork. So I sort of looked at it and thought, oh, maybe this is something I can do. So the courses themselves, I was looking mainly at the Crewelwork one. The course itself, I think, is £120, which, yeah, £120 is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things for this type of course, not so much. That also includes the kit that you need. If you purchase the kit by itself, it's £35. Obviously, you are going to be getting top-notch teaching through videos. However, I don't think there is any substitute at all for having a person there that you can ask, what am I doing wrong here? And for them to say, oh, you know, you need to lessen your tension, you need to do this, you need to work it this way. There's never a substitute for that. But with this particular online class, you don't get any, as far as I'm aware, that I've seen. There is no way of actually talking to the tutor. It's just basically a video presentation of how to do the stitches, how to work the piece, and you can't have any contact with the tutor. Instead, obviously they encourage you to have peer group discussions. So initially I was thinking, oh, before I looked into it, I was thinking, oh yeah, I could sign up to that. I would finally learn a grounding of something in crewel work. Maybe if I spent that much money on it, I would actually do it. But then I thought, hang on a minute, I've got books, I have YouTube, of which there are countless video tutorials and things. I have the materials, or I can get the materials. Do I really need to spend £120 to do that? And I think the conclusion I came to was no. I can understand if it's gold. I don't know. There are some cyber classes which I know are run in various places around the world. Alison Cole's come to mind. She's based in Australia and she does gold work. And somehow, if something cost that much and it was gold work, potentially I would spend more money on it. I don't know. But I'd be really interested in your thoughts on how you feel about those type of online classes. Because at the moment, for me, for the ones they're offering in crewel work and black work, I don't necessarily think I would gain anything by doing those. I would rather, if I was going to spend £120 on something, I would actually rather spend it, and nowhere near that much, on getting the fabric to do a few whitework designs with colour from Trish Burr's website in South Africa. I said even just the cost of the fabric, even if I had to factor in customs charges, it wouldn't be anywhere near that much. So yeah, I'm just really interested to hear what you think on that topic. Have you taken online classes? Tell me about if you've been to a class in person. I'd love to hear your experiences. Those type of things always sort of freak me out, I think. The thought of walking into a needlework, especially if it was a Royal School of Needlework class, I would just feel so rubbish. There's probably people there that have been stitching and doing those type of things for ages. I don't know. I think the anxiety levels would be super high, although I might enjoy it. But the closest one to me that they come to is Exeter, which is a couple of hours away. But as I said, it's more to do with the time factor and fitting things in around schedules and health and those type of things. So that's why online appeals. But the flip side of that is value for money. As I mentioned, Sarah Homfrey, you could buy a little goldwork kit, and then the video tutorial, she offered it free of charge, which is amazing for her to do. I would have paid for that, no question. So I'm not comparing like for like, I'm just saying there are videos out there that you could access for free and teach yourself. Am I more that person, or am I more the person that needs somebody to teach her? I don't know. I think I'm the first category. But please let me know. I am genuinely interested, and I always reply to everybody's comments anyway, but I am genuinely interested in your thoughts and opinions on making a transition from counted thread work to surface embroidery, and also your views on online classes versus real life classes versus teaching yourself. So thank you if you have got to the end of this video. Again, another long one from me. The good news is there probably won't be any more videos from me for another month or so, because I don't have anything to show you that's new, and I don't have anything else to say really until I finish something, and then I'll be back. So I'm thinking the next finish I'll have might be my band sampler, maybe, in which case I'll come back with a video to show you that complete, and I'll do what I did in the Alice video. I'll show you some other band samplers that I've completed, ones I have in my stash, etc, etc. So it'll be another sort of themed video. I just find those interesting to do myself, and I hope that you find them interesting. I know a lot of you found the Alice theme one interesting to watch, so I'll try my best. I won't promise, but I will try my best to make semi-regular appearances on YouTube. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching, and happy stitching.